Captain Samantha Rivera stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Force vessel Northern Star. The ship was the pride of humanity's small space fleet, built with the limited technology humans had developed themselves, with some guidance from friendly species in the Galactic Council. But the Northern Star was nothing compared to the massive shapes that appeared on her view screen now. "All stop," she ordered, her voice calm despite the tension in the room. "Hold position at the edge of Pluto's orbit." Her crew moved with practiced efficiency. They had trained for this moment for 3 months, ever since Earth received the warning from Ambassador Mason. Still, training was different from the real thing. Ahead of them, 5 Vaxari scout ships moved with unnatural grace for their size. "Open communications on all standard frequencies," Rivera said. "Use the greeting protocols provided by the Council." Lieutenant Paul Wright, the communications officer, nodded. "Broadcasting now, Captain." The massive main screen flickered, then showed the face of a Vaxari commander. His scaled skin was dark green with red markings across his eye ridges. He looked at the humans with what seemed like amusement. "This is Captain Samantha Rivera of the Earth Defense Force. We greet you in peace as outlined in the Galactic Council First Contact Protocols," she said clearly. The Vaxari commander made a sound that might have been a laugh. "I am Commander Krull of the Vaxari Expansion Fleet. We recognize no council authority in this matter. We claim this solar system in the name of the Vaxari Empire. Surrender your planet and colonies immediately." Rivera kept her expression neutral. This was exactly what they had expected. "We respectfully decline. Earth is not open to conquest or colonization. We propose peaceful dialogue instead." "Dialogue is for equals," Commander Krull replied. "You will learn your place in the galaxy. We will provide a demonstration of what resistance will bring." The screen went dark. "They've cut communications," Lieutenant Wright said. "All 5 vessels are moving toward the inner system. They're accelerating fast." Rivera pressed a button on her chair. "This is Captain Rivera to all Earth forces. First contact completed. Vaxari intentions confirmed hostile. Implement defense. Plan Alpha. I repeat, implement defense Plan Alpha." Back on Earth, William Delgado sat in the underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains. As Earth's Secretary of Defense, he had spent the past 3 months coordinating the planet's preparation for this moment. Around him, military leaders from every major nation watched as Captain Rivera's message came through. "So diplomacy failed," said General Lee from the Chinese contingent. "As expected." Delgado nodded. "Plan Alpha is now active. All orbital defense platforms go to full alert. Civilian evacuation of major cities begins immediately." On screens around the room, they watched as the Vaxari ships bypassed the Northern Star completely. The aliens clearly didn't consider one human vessel worth engaging. "They're heading straight for the moon," said Admiral Garcia. "Just as our intelligence suggested they might. The lunar colony was humanity's proudest achievement. Nearly 2,000 people lived and worked there, researching and mining. It was also deliberately designed to look more important than it was. A decision made after Mason's warning came through. Begin emergency evacuation of Luna Colony, Delgado ordered, then activate our surprise. On the moon, alarms blared through the corridors of Luna Colony. Karen Chen, a geological engineer, ran toward the evacuation pods with dozens of other colonists. They had drilled for this weekly since the warning came. 30 minutes to impact, announced the calm voice over the speakers. All personnel proceed to evacuation pods. Karen reached her assigned pod and helped an older scientist strap in. Through the small window, she could see other pods already launching, streaking away from the moon's surface toward Earth or the hidden stations on the far side. "We're not all going to make it," said the man next to her. "There's not enough time." Karen checked the straps on her harness. "We'll make it," she said firmly. "The defense systems will buy us time." High above the moon, the Vaxari ships approached. From hidden craters, human-built defense lasers activated, firing at the lead ship. The shots were like pinpricks to the massive alien vessel, but they caused the Vaxari to pause briefly in surprise. Commander Krull had not expected any resistance at all from the lunar outpost. The momentary hesitation allowed another wave of evacuation pods to launch. "Destroy that outpost," Krull ordered. "Make it quick but thorough. A proper demonstration." The Vaxari ships opened fire. Energy weapons far beyond human technology carved into the lunar surface. Habitation domes cracked, and then exploded as air rushed out. Mining facilities melted under the intense heat. Karen's evacuation pod was one of the last to launch. As they cleared the surface, a blast hit their launch bay. The pod spun wildly, damaged but still functioning. "Engine 2 is down," the pilot called out. "We can't reach Earth trajectory. We'll have to hide on the far side until rescue." The pod limped away as Luna Colony died behind them. Karen watched through the window as everything she had worked on for 5 years was destroyed in minutes. Back on Earth, Delgado and the military command watched the destruction through the colony's remaining cameras. The Vaxari were methodical, destroying every structure. "Casualties?" Delgado asked quietly. "Initial reports suggest we got about 80% of personnel out," an aide replied. "The rest?" She didn't need to finish. Delgado's face hardened. "Send the message to all Earth governments. Show them what we're facing." Within hours, video of the lunar colony's destruction reached every corner of Earth. The response surprised even those who knew human history well. Instead of panic, there was anger. Instead of division, there was unity. Recruitment centers for the newly formed Earth Defense Force were overwhelmed with volunteers. Nations that had been enemies for generations offered resources to each other. In her damaged escape pod on the dark side of the moon, Karen Chen recorded a message as the life support slowly failed. She had no way of knowing if it would ever reach Earth, but she spoke clearly into the camera. "They came to scare us, to make us surrender without a fight. They expect us to kneel, but that's not what humans do. Show them how humans stand." By some miracle, her pod's weak signal was picked up by a rescue vessel the next day. Karen was the only survivor from her pod, barely alive but still fighting. When her message reached Earth, it spread even faster than the footage of the attack. In the command center, Delgado listened to reports from around the world. The Vaxari had returned to the outer system after their demonstration, clearly expecting surrender terms. They would be waiting there for Earth's response. "They think they've frightened us into submission," he told the assembled leaders. "They don't understand what they've done. They've just united humanity like nothing in our history ever has." Admiral Garcia nodded. "Then let's show them our answer. Operation First Strike is ready." "Launch when ready," Delgado said. "And may God help us all." Above Earth, hidden shipyards revealed vessels that had been built in secret since the warning came. They weren't as large or powerful as the Vaxari ships, but they carried humanity's ingenuity and determination with them. The real war was about to begin. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with urgent voices. Representatives from 200 species filled the curved seats that rose like a giant bowl around the central speaking platform. Today was not a normal meeting. Today, they discussed the Vaxari and their plans for a small blue planet called Earth. Ambassador Ziegtal moved slowly to the speaking platform. His skin was pale blue, and the thin membrane between his long fingers trembled slightly. As the oldest council member, he had observed humans for over 3 centuries. Esteemed colleagues, his voice carried across the hall, suddenly strong despite his age. We must address the Vaxari plans to invade Earth. This would be a grave mistake. The Vaxari ambassador, Dren, snorted from his seat. His tough, scaled skin gleamed under the lights. The Vaxari had conquered 12 worlds in the past 50 Earth years. They were known for their military might and their belief that stronger species deserved to rule weaker ones. The Council has no right to interfere with our expansion, Dren called out. These humans have barely left their own planet. They fight among themselves constantly. They will make useful servants, nothing more. Ziegtal raised a hand and the chamber darkened. A 3-dimensional image appeared above the platform, showing Earth from space. Let me show you what humans are. He said quietly. Images began to play. Humans building massive structures with simple tools. Humans crossing oceans in wooden ships. Humans flying in primitive aircraft, then breaking the sound barrier, then leaving their planet to walk on their moon. Humans healing diseases. Creating art and yes, fighting wars. Terrible, destructive wars, but always rebuilding afterward. Humans adapt faster than any species we have encountered, Ziktal explained. When faced with problems, they become more creative, not less. When pushed to their limits, they do not break. They change. In a private viewing box above the main floor, John Mason watched in silence. As Earth's first ambassador to the Galactic Council, he had been allowed to observe but not speak during this emergency session. Next to him sat Lisa Hartman, his diplomatic aide. They had been Earth's representatives for only 6 months, ever since humanity had been deemed ready for limited contact with the wider galactic community. The images continued. Humans surviving in deserts, in Arctic wastelands, in deep jungles. Humans creating tools to overcome their physical limitations. The Vaxari believe that because humans lack natural armor or claws, because their world has lower gravity and their muscles are comparatively weak, they will submit easily, Ziktal continued. This is dangerously wrong. A new image appeared. Human settlement destroyed by a natural disaster. Then another image of the same place 1 year later, rebuilt and thriving. Humans call it resilience. They have faced extinction many times in their history. Each time they have survived by changing, adapting, working together in ways that seem impossible until they do it. Ambassador Dren stood up, his muscular frame towering over his fellow representatives. All species try to survive. That is not special. The weak always claim to be special before they are conquered. We have heard these warnings before. Not like this, Ziktal insisted. Humans are different. They appear weak individually, but when threatened as a species, they unite with surprising speed. Their diversity, which the Vaxari see as a weakness, is actually their greatest strength. They think differently from one another, find solutions where others see none. The council chairperson, a tall, willowy being named Vera, raised her 4 arms for quiet. Ambassador Ziktal, what exactly are you asking of the council? We cannot forbid the Vaxari from expansion under our current laws. As regrettable as their methods may be, I ask only that my warning be officially recorded, Ziktal replied, and that the Vaxari be strongly cautioned against this course of action, for their own sake. Laughter erupted from the Vaxari section. Dren shook his head, scales catching. The light. We appreciate the council's concern, but we have studied these humans thoroughly. They cannot even unite their own planet. They have no defense against our technology. The conquest will be quick and efficient. In the viewing box, Lisa Hartman turned to John Mason. They're really going to do it, aren't they? The Vaxari are going to attack Earth. Her voice was steady, but her hands gripped the railing tightly. Mason nodded slowly. His eyes never left the central platform. Yes. But we can't possibly win against their technology. The Council intelligence reports say they're at least a century ahead of us. Mason finally turned to look at her. His expression was calm, almost resigned. The Council has agreed to provide us with information, star charts, basic technical data, not weapons or ships, but knowledge. Will it be enough? Lisa asked. It will have to be. Down below, the debate continued. Most species seemed content to stay out of the conflict. A few expressed concern for the humans, but none offered help beyond what the Council had already approved. As the session ended, Ambassador Dren passed directly beneath their viewing box. He looked up at the humans and made a gesture that needed no translation, contempt. After the chambers emptied, Mason and Lisa were escorted to their quarters. The Council habitat was beautiful, with soaring ceilings and living plants from 100 worlds, but tonight it felt cold. How long do we have? Lisa asked as they entered their meeting room. The Council intelligence suggests 3 Earth months, before the Vaxari fleet reaches our solar system, Mason replied. He walked to the window, looking out at the strange stars. We need to send everything we've learned back home immediately. Will Earth's governments work together? Actually cooperate when they learn what's coming? Mason's reflection in the glass showed the hint of a smile. That's what the Vaxari don't understand. Humans fight each other constantly, yes, but we've always been at our best when facing something bigger than our differences. Lisa joined him at the window. Ambassador Zigtal tried to warn them. Yes, Mason nodded. But some lessons can only be learned the hard way. He turned from the window. Send word to Earth. Tell them everything. And Lisa? Yes? Tell them to prepare for the greatest fight in human history, but also to remember who we are. If we lose that, we lose everything that makes us worth saving. As Lisa left, to prepare the transmission, Mason looked once more at the alien sky. Let them come, he whispered. They'll learn. The sky over Chicago turned red as the Vaxari ships broke through the atmosphere. It had been 2 weeks since the destruction of Luna Colony, and now the real invasion had begun. The Vaxari did not attack just one place. They came to cities, all across Earth at the same time. Alan Parker watched from the window of his auto repair shop as one of the massive alien ships hovered above the city. He was just a mechanic, never finished college, never even left the Midwest. Yet here he was, watching the end of the world as he knew it. Everyone get to the basement, he told his employees. They had prepared for this, reinforcing the old storage room underneath the shop. It wasn't much, but it might keep them alive. As they hurried down the stairs, the first explosions rocked the city. The Vaxari were targeting military bases first, but their weapons were so powerful that everything around their targets was destroyed too. 2 days later, Alan emerged from the basement to find half the city in ruins. The alien ships were gone, for now moved on to other targets. In the distance, he could see the strange shapes of Vaxari ground troops. They looked like giant lizards walking on 2 legs, covered in armor that gleamed even through the smoke. Alan watched as a squad of human soldiers tried to fight the aliens. Their bullets just bounced off the Vaxari armor. The soldiers were quickly killed. But one bullet hit a small spot where the armor plates connected at the neck, and that Vaxari fell. Alan stared hard at that spot. 20 years fixing cars had taught him how things fit together, where the weak points were. He looked down at the tools in his hands. I need to tell someone about this, he muttered to himself. Across the ruined city, Sofia Rodriguez led a group of survivors through the back streets. Before the invasion, she had been a police officer. Now she was whatever these people needed her to be. Protector, leader, fighter. Stay low and quiet, she whispered to the group. They were heading for the underground train tunnels where many survivors had gathered. As they turned a corner, they saw it, a small Vaxari scout ship that had landed in what used to be a park. Only 2 alien guards stood outside. Sophia held up her hand, stopping the group. A crazy idea formed in her mind. If they could take that ship. I need 5 volunteers, she said quietly. We're going to capture that ship. Using the tactics she had learned in police work, Sophia led her small team in a coordinated attack. They used the rubble for cover, created a distraction, and managed to surprise the guards. The fight was quick and brutal. 2 of her volunteers were injured, but both Vaxari were down. Now comes the hard part, Sophia said, looking at the alien ship. We need to figure out how this thing works. In Washington, D.C., what remained of the government had moved to bunkers deep underground. William Delgado met with military leaders to assess the situation. We've lost most of our major cities, General Powell reported grimly. But something interesting is happening. The Vaxari expected us to surrender after the first wave of attacks. Instead, we're seeing resistance groups form everywhere. What about our own forces? Delgado asked. Conventional weapons aren't effective against their armor, but we're adapting. There's a mechanic in Chicago who discovered a weakness in their armor and spread the word through the resistance networks. A police officer in the same city captured a scout ship. We're analyzing it now. Delgado nodded. This was what Ambassador Zigtal had tried to tell the Vaxari about humans. They adapted. And Project Breakthrough? Dr. Washington reports they're making progress. Having access to alien technology has helped. In an underground laboratory beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Eric Washington worked tirelessly with a team of scientists. They had been given pieces of Vaxxery technology recovered from battle sites. Their job was to understand it and find ways to use it against the invaders. The power source is like nothing we've ever seen, Dr. Washington told his team as they examined a damaged Vaxxery weapon. But the firing mechanism is actually fairly simple, if we can replicate this. The door to the lab opened, and an aide rushed in. Doctor, you need to see this. The resistance in Chicago sent us detailed scans of a captured scout ship. Dr. Washington's eyes widened as he looked at the data. This changes everything. Get me Delgado immediately. At the Galactic Council, Ambassador Mason sent an urgent message to Earth. The Council had voted not to intervene directly in the conflict, but several members sympathetic to humanity had provided valuable intelligence about Vaxxery technology and tactics. We don't need your ships or soldiers, Mason had told them. Just your knowledge. Now he waited for Earth to respond, to know if his people still survived. When the secure communication channel activated, he nearly collapsed with relief. This is Delgado. We're still here, Ambassador. Bloodied but fighting. The Council has provided technical specifications for Vaxxery communication systems, Mason said quickly. If you can disrupt them, their forces will have trouble coordinating. That's exactly what we need, Delgado replied. We've formed a global hacker collective led by a young man named Kevin Martinez. They've been trying to breach Vaxxery systems, with limited success. This information could be the key. In what used to be Silicon Valley, Kevin Martinez worked with programmers from around the world. Some he had only met online before the invasion. Now they worked side by side in a hidden facility attempting to crack alien code. It's not so different from ours, Kevin told his team as they received the new information from the Council. Different symbols, different logic structure, but still just math when you break it down. With the new data, they made rapid progress. Within days, they had created a virus that could infect the Vaxxery battlefield communication systems. Meanwhile, Major Nicole Bennett prepared for humanity's first real counterattack. The Earth Defense Force had modified civilian spacecraft with weapons based on Dr. Washington's research. It wasn't much of a fleet, just 30 ships against hundreds of Vaxxery vessels, but they had surprise on their side. Remember, she told her pilots, we don't need to defeat their whole fleet. We just need to show them we can hurt them. The human ships launched from hidden bases around the world. At the same time, Kevin's team activated their virus, throwing Vaxxery communications into chaos. The counterattack caught the aliens completely by surprise. 6 Vaxxery ships were destroyed before they could respond. It wasn't a major victory in terms of numbers, but it was something humans desperately needed: hope. General Vox, the Vaxxery Supreme Commander, raged at his subordinates. How is this possible? They are primitives. Their technology is centuries behind ours. They are adapting faster than expected, one officer replied nervously. And they seem to have received information about our systems. Vox slammed his fist down. The Council. They have interfered. He paced the command room of his flagship. Request reinforcements from the homeworld. We will crush these humans with overwhelming force. The officer hesitated. There may be a problem with that, General. The Council has imposed sanctions on our empire for violations of invasion protocols. Our supply lines are being monitored. Vox stared in disbelief. This was supposed to be an easy conquest, a quick addition to the Vaxxery Empire. Instead, it had become complicated, costly, and now politically dangerous. These humans, he growled, will pay for this humiliation. Prepare the Special Weapons Division. If we cannot conquer Earth, we will make an example of it. What Vox didn't understand was that his threats only strengthened human resolve. Across Earth, people who had once fought each other now stood together, and in orbit above the planet, Captain Rivera prepared to launch humanity's greatest achievement yet, a starship capable of taking the fight to the enemy. 6 months into the invasion, Captain Samantha Rivera stood on the bridge of the Defiance. The ship represented humanity's greatest achievement, their first true starship. It was smaller than the Vaxari vessels, but it incorporated everything humans had learned from studying captured alien technology. Status report, Rivera called out as the ship moved silently through space. They were heading toward Jupiter, where the Vaxari had established their main command station. All systems functioning normally, Captain, her second-in-command reported. The Vaxari still haven't detected us. The cloaking technology from the Council is working. Rivera nodded. The Defiance led a small fleet of 20 ships. All Earth had been able to build in the short time they had. It wasn't much against the massive Vaxari force, but this wasn't meant to be a direct battle. This was a surgical strike. Back on Earth, the tide of war had begun to turn. Major Nicole Bennett coordinated the space battle plan from the underground command center. The screens around her showed the positions of all human and Vaxari ships. The Defiance is in position, she told Secretary Delgado. Kevin's team is ready to launch the communication blackout. Delgado looked at the tactical display. And on the ground, resistance forces are prepared to attack all major Vaxari ground bases simultaneously when the signal is given. Dr. Washington has equipped them with modified weapons that can penetrate Vaxari armor. In Chicago, Sofia Rodriguez led one of these resistance groups. What had started as a small band of survivors was now an organized fighting force. They had trained with the new weapons developed by Dr. Washington's team, which used the aliens' own technology against them. Everyone clear on the plan? Sophia asked the group gathered in the abandoned subway tunnel. They had converted this place into a base over the past months. When the signal comes, we hit them fast and hard. Alan Parker, the mechanic who had discovered the weakness in Vaxari armor, now served as her chief of weapons. The new guns work well, he said. One shot to the connection points in their armor and they go down. Sophia nodded. Remember, we're not just fighting for Chicago. This is happening all over the world at the same time. For the first time, we have a chance to really hurt them. In orbit around Jupiter, General Vox was growing increasingly frustrated. The humans had proven far more difficult to defeat than anyone had predicted. What should have been a simple conquest had turned into a costly war. The special weapons are nearly ready, his weapons officer reported. Once deployed, they will make Earth uninhabitable. The humans will have no choice but to surrender or die. Vox nodded grimly. Prepare them for launch within the next Earth Day. I want this over with. What Vox didn't know was that one of his scientists was actually a captured human. Steve Harrison had been forced to work on Vaxari weapons for months. He had gained their trust by appearing cooperative, but all along he had been looking for a way to sabotage their plans. As Harrison worked on the final calibrations of the planet-killer weapons, he made tiny, nearly undetectable changes to the targeting systems, changes that would become apparent only when the weapons were activated. Meanwhile, aboard the Defiance, Rivera gave the order to begin their attack. Launch the communication disruptors, then bring us out of stealth mode. Across the Vaxari fleet, communication systems suddenly went dark. The virus developed by Kevin Martinez's team infected their networks, cutting off ships from each other and from command. In the confusion, the human fleet appeared seemingly out of nowhere. They targeted the weakest points of the Vaxari ships, the exact spots identified through months of careful study. General Vox was stunned as alarms blared throughout his command station. What is happening? We're under attack, his officer replied. Human vessels. They've somehow penetrated our defenses and disabled our communications. Impossible, Vox roared. But the evidence was on the screens before him. The human ships moved, with precision, targeting Vaxari vessels with weapons that shouldn't have been able to damage them, yet somehow did. Rivera had studied Vaxari battle tactics for months and knew exactly how they would respond. They're trying to regroup into defensive formation delta, she told her crew. Target these coordinates now. The Defiance fired, hitting the exact spot, where 3 Vaxari ships were attempting to come together for mutual protection. One exploded, damaging the others. On Earth, the signal was given. In every occupied city, human resistance fighters emerged from hiding and attacked Vaxari positions, simultaneously. In Chicago, Sophia led her team against one of the main alien bases. "Focus fire on their communication tower," she called out. "Once that's down, they can't coordinate." The new weapons worked better than they had hoped. The Vaxari, cut off from their command and facing weapons that could actually harm them, were thrown into confusion. In the command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, Delgado and his team watched as reports came in from around the world. "It's working," he said quietly. "They're falling back." Ambassador Mason watched the battle from the Galactic Council chambers. Many of the representatives had gathered to observe. The Vaxari delegation was noticeably absent. "Remarkable, Ambassador," Zigtal said as he stood beside Mason. "I told them what humans were capable of, but even I am surprised at how quickly your species has adapted." "We've had good teachers," Mason replied. "The information the Council provided was invaluable." Zigtal's expression grew serious. "I have just received troubling news. The Vaxari have developed weapons capable of rendering entire planets uninhabitable. They plan to use them against Earth." Mason's face paled. "Can our fleet stop them?" "I have transmitted the specifications of these weapons to your command, but it may not be enough. These weapons are housed within the command station itself." Back at Jupiter, Rivera received the urgent message from Earth. "We need to change our target," she told her crew. "The command station is our primary objective now. All other targets are secondary." The Defiance changed course, heading directly for the massive Vaxari command station. Several enemy ships moved to intercept them. "We won't make it through their defensive line," Rivera's tactical officer warned. "We have to," Rivera replied firmly. "The fate of Earth depends on it." Inside the command station, Steve Harrison saw his opportunity. As the Vaxari prepared to launch their planet-killer weapons, he activated his sabotage. Warning lights flashed. "Across control panels, what's happening?" demanded the Vaxari weapons chief. "The targeting systems are malfunctioning," Harrison said, trying to sound concerned. "The weapons are locking onto our own ships." "Fix it," the chief ordered. "I'll try," Harrison replied. But instead of fixing the problem, he made it worse. Much worse. As the Defiance battled its way toward the command station, the planet-killer weapons began to power up. But instead of targeting Earth, they were now locked onto the command station itself. General Vox realized too late what was happening. "Shut them down," he ordered. "Shut everything down." But Harrison had made sure that would be impossible. The weapons had entered their final sequence. There was no stopping them now. "All ships retreat," Rivera ordered her fleet. "Maximum speed away from the command station." The human fleet pulled back just as the first energy pulses began to emanate from the Vaxari command station. The station seemed to glow from within, and then exploded in a blast that consumed itself and several nearby Vaxari ships. The remaining Vaxari fleet, leaderless and in disarray, began to scatter. Some attempted to continue fighting, but without coordination, they were quickly defeated. On Earth, the resistance fighters pressed their advantage. Within hours, reports came in from around the world of Vaxari forces surrendering or retreating. India. The command center, Delgado, received the news from space with a mixture of joy and sorrow. "The command station has been destroyed. The threat to Earth is over." "And the Defiance?" Major Bennett asked anxiously. There was a long pause before the answer came. "Captain Rivera reports minor damage, but all ships accounted for. They're coming. Home." For the first time in 6 months, people around the world began to celebrate. The Vaxari invasion had been defeated, against all odds. But as Ambassador Mason knew from his place at the Galactic Council, this was not the end. It was only the beginning of humanity's role in the wider galaxy. And there would be much to discuss when the Vaxari eventually returned to the council chambers to face the consequences of their actions. 5 years had passed since the Vaxari invasion of Earth. The planet still bore the scars of war, ruined cities being rebuilt, vast areas where battles had left the land barren. But there were signs of hope everywhere too. In the newly rebuilt Galactic Council chambers, Lisa Hartman stood at the speaker's platform. Once just an aide to Ambassador Mason, she now led Earth's diplomatic team. Mason himself had retired after guiding humanity through its first steps into the wider galactic community. The Council recognizes Earth's representative, announced Chairperson Vera, her forearms raised for attention. Lisa looked around at the assembled representatives from across the galaxy. The chamber was different from the one she had first seen years ago. After the war, the Council had reformed, creating new rules about intervention and protection of developing worlds. Esteemed colleagues, Lisa began, Earth brings a proposal. For the newly formed Defense Alliance, we suggest joint training exercises in the Proxima system next month. It was still strange to Lisa that humans now had a leadership role in galactic affairs, but their victory against the technologically superior Vaxari had earned them respect among the stars. Earth's unique approach to problems, creative, adaptive, sometimes unpredictable, had proven valuable. Ambassador Zeichtal, now very old, even by his species' standards, nodded approvingly from his seat. He had been Earth's first true ally in the Council and remained a strong supporter of humanity's integration into galactic society. As Lisa concluded her presentation, she noticed a figure entering the chamber, a Vaxari. Even after 5 years, the sight still made her tense briefly. This Vaxari was different from those who had invaded Earth. His scales were a paler green, and he moved with a careful humility that the arrogant invaders had never shown. Ambassador Krell was part of the new Vaxari government, formed after their old empire collapsed following the failed invasion of Earth. After the session ended, Krell approached Lisa. Council security watched carefully, but there had been no incidents. In the 3 years since the Vaxari had been allowed to rejoin the Council, Representative Hartman, Krell said with a respectful bow of his head, "May I speak with you privately?" Lisa nodded, and they moved to one of the small meeting rooms off the main chamber. "I bring news," Krell said once they were seated. "The last prisoner exchange has been arranged. The remaining humans who were taken to Vaxari worlds during the war will return home next month." "That's excellent news," Lisa replied. There had been thousands of humans captured during the early days of the invasion. Most had been returned years ago, but some had been taken to distant Vaxari colonies. "There is something else," Krell continued, seeming uncomfortable. "Our archaeologists have discovered something on our homeworld, ancient records suggesting this was not the first time our peoples have met." Lisa leaned forward with interest. "What do you mean?" "It seems that thousands of years ago, when both our species were in their infancy, there was contact. The records are fragmented, but they suggest your people visited our world." "That's impossible," Lisa said. "Humans didn't have space travel until very recently." Krell spread his hands in a gesture he had learned from humans. "Perhaps there is more to your species' history than you know. The records speak of beings much like humans teaching our ancestors about stars and mathematics before departing again." Before Lisa could respond, her communication device signaled an urgent message from Earth. She excused herself and took the call. "The Defiance has returned," said Secretary Delgado's voice. He had remained in his position through the reconstruction, years providing stability in a changing world. "Captain Rivera wants to report directly to you. She says it's important." When Lisa returned to Earth the next day, she went straight to the spaceport where the Defiance had docked. The ship looked different from when it had first launched, modified and improved with technology from across the galaxy. Its mission for the past 3 years had been exploration rather than war. Captain Rivera met her at the airlock. The years of command had added silver streaks to her dark hair, but her eyes were as sharp and determined as ever. "We found something," Rivera said without preamble. "Something that changes everything we know about humanity's place in the galaxy." She led Lisa to the ship's conference room where holograms showed strange structures on an alien planet. "This is from the Cygnus system," Rivera explained. "It's far beyond where humans have ever traveled before, at least according to our records." The holograms showed what looked like ancient ruins, but with a design that seemed oddly familiar.
"DNA analysis of remains we found there is conclusive," Rivera continued. "They were human, Lisa. Humans were in deep space thousands of years ago." Lisa stared at the images, remembering what Ambassador Krell had just told her. "The Vaxari found,"
records suggesting the same thing. There's more, Rivera said. We found writing we could partially translate. It suggests that ancient humans had advanced technology but faced some kind of disaster. They seeded multiple worlds, including Earth, before their civilization collapsed. Lisa sat down heavily. Are you saying we're not originally from Earth? I'm saying our history is far more complex than we knew, Rivera replied. And I think many in the Council already suspected this. It might explain why some species were so eager to help us, or why others, like the Vaxari, feared us so much. The next day, a special session of Earth's global government convened to discuss the discovery. Karen Chen was there, the survivor, of Luna Colony who had become a symbol of resistance during the war, and now served as humanities science director. If this is true, she said, it means we're reclaiming our heritage, not just advancing into something new. Secretary Delgado nodded. The question is, do we share this information with the rest of humanity? It will change how we see ourselves. We have to, Lisa said firmly. We've come this far by facing truth, not hiding from it. The announcement was made worldwide the following week. There was shock, disbelief, wonder, but also a strange sense of rightness. Somehow it explained humanity's constant looking to the stars, their persistent feeling that they belonged out there. 1 month later, in the renewed Luna colony, a memorial was finally completed. It stood where the original colony had been destroyed, marking the place where the war had truly begun. Lisa stood with Karen Chen as the memorial was unveiled. It was simple but powerful, a sculpture showing human figures standing tall, facing outward toward the stars. At its base were Karen's words that had inspired resistance fighters throughout the war. They expected us to kneel. We showed them how humans stand. Ambassador Krell attended the ceremony, the first Vaxari to visit the moon since the invasion. As the gathered humans and alien dignitaries observed a moment of silence, he approached Karen. My people were wrong about yours, he said quietly. We thought your adaptability was a sign of weakness, constantly changing because you had no true strength of your own. Now we understand it is your greatest strength. Karen nodded, accepting his words. The road to forgiveness between their species would be long, but this was a start. As the Earth rose over the lunar horizon, casting its blue light over the gathering, Lisa thought about the journey humanity had taken. From a species confined to one world, to nearly being conquered, to finding their place among the stars, and perhaps rediscovering their true origins. Whatever the ancient past held, the future was wide open, and humans would face it as they always had, standing together, adapting, evolving, but always remaining uniquely human. The Galactic Council had warned the Vaxari about humans. Next time, perhaps the galaxy would listen.